Hello everyone. This story is about, what if God-like Naruto was able to feel other people's emotions and fall in love with Mei and Anko? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I've uploaded. Now let's start. Sarutobi Hiruzen and Hitaki Kakashi stood wide-eyed as they listened to Uzumaki Naruto. His shadow, Uchiha Sasuke, could only smirk at their shock and odd expressions. Did they truly have little faith in his Shursho's ability? There was nothing Naruto couldn't do, and soon, everyone would know it. The two had arrived in Konoha not 5 minutes ago. Their training was done and the village was safer because of it. Naruto was faster and Sasuke was better in all aspects of the word. The monsters had returned to heaven. And now, there was no demon, dead or alive, that could hurt their people. But how? Kakashi asked, believing the boy's words were impossible. He really shouldn't though. Why was that any more impossible than what he did for Hayate? He guessed he just thought that after his sensei, the technique developed by the Nidame's brilliant mind would be lost to the world. When did you start learning Fuinjutsu? Naruto smirked. I've been dabbling in it since I first met Jiraiya-sensei. He gave me everything I needed years ago. I just finally decided to put all of my attention on it. Sasuke wanted to sigh. If a single month was all it took to learn something like that, then he shivered at what his Shursho would become in a couple of years. But how did you learn it in a month? By yourself? Hiruzen asked. He knew for a fact, better than most even, just how powerful his shadow was. He saw with his own eyes what Naruto could do, but this, added to the apparent resurrection of Gekko Hayate. It was getting hard to assess the Uzumaki's strength. Naruto smiled. He had already used this to answer a question before. Because I'm my father's son, that's how. And with that, the conversation was over. After leaving the Hokage's office, Naruto had looked at Sasuke expectantly. With the look, Sasuke had smirked and nodded his head. It was strange, for the Uchiha. While he was blind, Sakura was nothing but an annoyance to him. She was too loud, too clingy, and much too irritating for him to even think about her without developing a sour face. But now, with his eyes open, she was much more than that. She was his salvation. She was the only source of love, true love that he had left. He wanted more than anything to be capable of love, both receiving it and giving it. After witnessing the deaths of every loved one he ever had at the tender age of 7 had thoroughly rid him of the emotion, and replaced it with foul, dark hate. Sakura was more than his salvation now. Sakura was now his hope. After seeing his student off to ask a certain cherry blossom to go on a date with him, Naruto began to walk towards the feelings of self-loathing he felt when he first entered the village again. He thought this might happen. No. He knew this was happening. He had felt it after waking up, but he just couldn't bring himself to face her. Hyuga was his sister, his family. Having her feel hatred towards him had done more than he wanted to admit. He had lost himself. With her emotions, she had struck him down. He needed to be more careful, because if he would do something so stupid as to risk his life, and that of his true family, then he needed to fix himself. The blonde didn't hate her, actually it was the opposite. He still very much loved her, and her sorry mind strengthened that love. Really, in all honesty, he was going to forgive her for 2 reasons. The more important of the 2 was that he still loved her like an older sister. Everyone hates someone once in a while. It would accomplish nothing to make her hate herself any longer. And the second reason was because he really loved Hayate's cooking. He was just apprehensive because of how awkward it was going to be. If he thought that that was going to be awkward, he was in for a real treat when 2 certain kunoichi found him. It was his fault, really. His attention was his eyes looked up towards the sky elsewhere, so he couldn't use his empathy right now. He had only felt Yugao's mind a few minutes before he left the village and a few minutes after he returned. He was practically blind right now. So when he felt 2 sets of hands wrap around his arms, he almost jumped. That, however, stopped when he noticed who it was. Anko, he asked to his left. Mei, he turned and asked to the right. What's going dash he was stopped by the speed Mei pushed her lips against his. Now, normally Naruto wouldn't have minded this, but with Anko holding his left arm, it was very much awkward. When she finally let up, he looked to see the inevitable look of betrayal on Anko's face, but that too was interrupted when Anko slammed her lips into his. After she finally pulled back, he was very red, and very confused. What the hell was going on? He decided to let his concentration on again, his eyes roamed upwards and see what was really going on. With his empathy back, he was hit like a tidal wave with two very distinct emotions. Acceptance and lust. Mei and Anko had made their decision. They both loved Naruto too much to let him hate himself. If the two of them were what he wanted, then they would give him that. He deserved more than them, but if that's what made him happy, then he'd have them, both of them. They were both sporting very red faces and trying to breathe regularly. This was extremely awkward and embarrassing, but they were going through with it nonetheless. They had decided to stay quiet and just express this with their emotions and actions. That's when Naruto did something neither thought he'd do. The blonde Uzumaki unwrapped their arms and took a step back. Turning to him, Mei's and Anko's hearts were angry. They already knew why he did this. He felt that his desires were a bad thing. He still hated himself. That's when Mei took him by the collar, tears trying to escape from her eyes. "You idiot," she screamed. "Stop hating yourself. Your desires are not a bad thing." Naruto narrowed his eyes in shock. "Damn it, Kurama. We've accepted this," she said softly. We want nothing but this now," she all but whispered. Please don't deny this. You want it, we want it. Just." She shook her head. She really didn't want to cry right now. "Damn it, you promised." His letter flashed through his mind. "She's right, Naruto," Anko stated firmly, taking a step forward. "You deserve whatever you want, but this isn't something just you want, it's what we want too." She gave a small smile, something she had only ever showed him once before. "Now shut up and open your eyes and accept what you already know is going to happen." She smirked at quoting the QB. "And let us show you what real adults do in the dark." Her smirk turned a little sultry. Mei sighed at Anko's sexual innuendo. She was very much ready to do just that, but saying it out loud in the middle of the village was a little too much for the Kage. Naruto was just looking at the ground. This was what he had dreamed of for years. He was accepted by both of the women he loved. But his desires hindered him, right? No. He would not dump his inability to save Hayate before he died instead of after on them. They were the most beautiful things in his life. They would bring him happiness and joy when he slept. He no longer had nightmares, because their faces were all he saw when he closed his eyes. He couldn't lose them. He wouldn't lose them. They actually accepted him. They were willing to share him. He smirked. They had challenged him. They thought they were going to teach the rookie how it was done. They wouldn't know what hit them, because there was nothing Uzumaki Naruto couldn't do. Anko, Mei, and Naruto disappeared from the streets of Konoha. It had already been 3 hours. Thrust. Her moans filled his ears. He loved it when she made that noise. Thrust. His grunt filled her ears. She loved how rough he was. Thrust. God, she felt good. She fit him perfectly, like she too was made for him. He loved it. Thrust. God, he was big. He took her breath away with each thrust. She loved it. Thrust. She moaned again. "I'm going to." She tightened around him, followed by her legs wrapping around his waist. If the last 3 hours were anything to go by, she always did that when she was ready. "Me too," he grunted again. "Tea together." He began to thrust harder, just the way she liked when she was close. She liked it rougher than the woman resting to their right. "I love you," he whispered. He always did that when he was ready. And with those words said, they both released together. Her screams of ecstasy were his favorite part. For a moment, they didn't move. They didn't say a word. All they did was breath heavily and stare into their lover's eyes. Finally, Anko leaned up, and Naruto leaned down to meet her for a passionate kiss. The kiss lasted for a few minutes, before they broke it off. Naruto smirked, and in a matter of seconds, Anko gasped. He was ready for another round already. "You want to go again?" he asked, moving around inside her slowly. When she gave him a predatory look, he had his answer. Mei got to her knees, a pout on her face. Naruto chuckled. "You're next," he warned in a playful tone. Mei needed this break before they went at it again, because he wasn't even close to being done. The stupid smile on his face was not missed by either woman. He really was good at everything. He didn't even care that both Kurenai and Asuma were home, them being in Anko's room and all, and could hear everything with great detail. This was just too good to stop and be considerate for others. If they didn't like it, then they could leave. Naruto began to thrust. It was later that night when they finally stopped. The three of them were just laying together, Anko and Mei to either side of him. They were asleep now, thoroughly exhausted from their previous activities. It had been the greatest night of the young Uzumaki's life. He was glad he had waited until this moment to have his first time. Losing his virginity to the women he loved made it all the better. Pushing his empathy to them also helped. Everyone could feel everyone's emotions, their pleasure. It was literally out of this world. Yet, something was still missing. His family didn't feel complete. He needed to talk to Hyuga, so that's why he was currently out of the bed, Akage Bunshin taking his place, and putting his clothes on. He missed his Nei-chan, and he would be damned before he put her through any more suffering. He was out the door, making his way to Hyate's house. He sighed. He could feel the mind of the Tokubetsu Jonin. The man felt like he was unworthy. He felt like he shouldn't still be here. Naruto wanted to change his mind as soon as possible. As he walked through the night-covered village, he took in a deep breath. This was his home. This was his heaven. Demons were going to try and raze Konoha to the ground tomorrow. They wanted to bring their foul-tainted darkness and blacken the golden city of God. They would very soon see the folly in their choices, because they had just enraged an angel of wrath. They would soon witness the true, absolute power the Kamikage of Konoha wielded. They would soon witness the power God commands, the power he and he alone can use at any moment. They were all going to die. Hayate held Hyuga in his arms as they sat on their couch, relaxing. His fiancée hadn't gotten over her idiocy yet, but she was able to actually function. This had been her 4th day back in service, and she was given the night off since she would be busy tomorrow. The two decided to just sit together and talk. They hadn't done much of that as of late, and they were both too tired for anything else. Hayate was a little upset that since he was technically dead, he couldn't proctor the exams tomorrow. He was told today by the Hokage that Naruto was going to take his place. He understood, but he was really looking forward to proctoring. All well, you gain some, you lose some. At least he still had his life. He really wished Naruto would talk to them though. He knew he must have been hurt by Hyuga, but she was obviously sorry for what happened. As he was pondering the situation his lover was in, the door swung open, revealing the very person he, and most definitely his lover, was thinking about. Naruto? Hayate said in slight shock. He honestly didn't think that the blonde would just walk into their home again. The Uzumaki didn't say anything. Hyuga started to get up from her sitting position when she was pushed back down by her atudo. Then, he finally spoke. I have something to say to both of you. The tone in his voice was serious. It was his Anbu Taicho voice. I don't believe words express the heart, so I will not be using them. He put his hands on the stunned couple's heads. No more guessing. No more not knowing. We will see everything, right now. Their world went white. They could see the way he looked at her. It wasn't lewd lust or territorial in the slightest. They could genuinely see how beautiful he thought she was. They could see the way he acted towards her, in front of others and alone. He was no one but himself, always. They could tell that it was love that he felt for her. They could feel the warmth she caused for him when she entered a room. They were glad that she had him. He was truly worthy of their sister. He loved her, and they knew it. They could see the way she looked at him. He had been just an ordinary person to her for so long. But now, they could tell that he was her everything. She felt awake when he was near, they knew that. But this was their sister, so they had to make sure. After feeling the man's true intentions, his heart, they decided that he was the only one fit for her. They could see the love and admiration in her eyes when she looked at him. It was love, actual love. It was beautiful. She loved him, and they knew it. She had hated them. He had died. She still loved them. They brought him back. Nothing more, nothing less, as it should be for family. They understood, and had forgiven. She was their sister, and he was now their brother. They wanted Shashiya. The gold faded from their eyes, and exhaustion hit them. The information overload wasn't as bad as usual, but it still took a lot out of Yugao and Hayate. They had just seen through Naruto's eyes, as if the memories were their own. They could feel the things he felt every day, and it was incredible. It was so detailed, so perceivable. It was like he looked at emotions as colors, and every color spoke to him. Not in the figurative either. The colors the blonde saw actually spoke. It was truly amazing. Now that you see the truth, can we please put this behind us and be a family again? He asked hopefully. He had his women, now he needed his siblings. The tears fell before she launched herself at the boy, embracing him in a tight, motherly hug. She didn't speak, but the way she was nodding her head gave him all he needed to know. Hayate began, but stopped when Naruto started. Because you'll always be my family too, that's why. The Uzumaki had no need for words, how many times did he have to say that? Hayate smiled warmly before joining in on the family hug. Neither of them had much family, so this was a very welcomed embrace. Naruto sighed. This was as good a time as any to tell her. Yugane, he started reluctantly, I'm not a virgin anymore. He said in a very Anko-like bluntness. Hayate froze, and not just because the room dropped 20 degrees. His eyes widened and he suddenly felt the intense urge to be anywhere but here. He knew how his fiancée felt about Naruto's innocence, so it was terrifying to be this close to the purple-haired woman at the moment. Who? She asked in a cold voice. Naruto sighed again. If she was this mad about him actually losing his virginity, he wasn't really looking forward to how she was going to react to his first time being a threesome that lasted 7 or so hours. What the hell, it was time to be honest. Mitarashi Anko and Terumi Mei. He answered honestly. At the same time? She half shouted, half whispered. The Mizukichi? Hayate asked at the same time. Naruto gave them a stupid, proud of himself smile and nodded. That answered both of their questions. And I don't care how mad you are. I still want a meal at Shashiya's. He snickered at his sister's irritated, joyful, and furious face. That woman's face could multitask like no other. The Naruto clone had finally accomplished the task the original gave to him. The moon sat in the night sky surrounded by lazy stars. The air was cold and the entire village was asleep, besides the ANBU on patrol. They paid him no mind though, mostly because they had no idea he was even there, but if they did, they would never tell the Kamikage what he could and couldn't do. It was an incredibly clever idea, but the clone absolutely hated the preparation behind it. Having to touch every civilian in only a few hours was hard work, but Uzumaki Naruto could do anything, even if it was a Kage Bunshin of Uzumaki Naruto. This would pay off in the long run, but right now, it did nothing but irritate the clone. He knew the boss had to clear things up with Yugane, but he really dumped this on his poor, innocent clone. And the worst thing was that he couldn't afford to prank his creator, since even the bringer of hope's clones were scared of him. All he could do was take whatever small pleasure he could in the fact that all of his exhaustion would transfer to the real blonde when he dispelled. With that in mind, Naruto clone puffed in a small burst of smoke, sending everything to the original. When the memories of the clone he made finally made it to him, Naruto didn't even flinch at the exhaustion that him. It was like a fly, annoying, but manageable. Somewhere, in a place no one knows even exists, a blonde sighed deeply. Of course. After his talk with Yugao, he had left for the night, after spending hours calming her down about his first sexual experience. He knew his sister wouldn't understand right away, but the fact that she was able to calm down at all for the time being was a miracle. They tried to have him stay with them for the night, but he declined. He had 2 beautiful women waiting for him back in Anko's room, and he very much wanted to get back to them. He also wanted to get as much rest as he could since tomorrow he was going to war. And he really was. The Hokage's plan was for him to not only rescue everyone, but also fight off the invasion simultaneously. It wasn't impossible, not now, but it definitely was going to be something. It didn't take long before they woke up, and apparently, all 3 of them were ready to go again. After only an hour this time, the 3 were dressed and out the door. That's why they were walking towards the main arena that the final stage was going to be held in, Kurenai and Asuma right behind them. Naruto really wanted to turn around and make conversation with the 2 Jonin just to make this as awkward as he could. but decided they suffered enough when they saw Anko exit her room with the bringer of hope and go Dame Mizukage after hearing screams of pleasure all night and this morning. It was amusing, for now. Mei, Naruto began suddenly, no matter what happens today, I want you to know that Konoha is your ally, and I personally promise that no harm will come to your people. Mei was confused by the words before she nodded slowly. She trusted him, with everything. Hi. Anko, Kurenai, and Asuma already knew what the blonde was talking about. The Jonin were briefed by the Hokage. Apparently, Suna and Oto were going to try and crush them. When they heard that Uzumaki Naruto and Hitaki Kakashi were going to lead the assault against the intruders, they all wanted to laugh at how stupid these people were. Sharingan no Kakashi may only be an A-rank shinobi, but he's the closest person to S-rank that the village had in the Jonin ranks. He was considered one of the two most powerful ninja in Konoha, right under the bringer of hope. Jiraiya didn't count since he wasn't a registered operative. He was still loyal to only the Leaf, but he had more freedom this way. The rest of the walk was done in comfortable silence. Kurenai and Asuma felt safest when they were together and able to watch each other's back. And with Anko and Mei at either side, Naruto felt invincible. He was actually looking forward to this. He would protect his women, his family, his people, his village, and he'd get to kill a whole lot of demons. The monster was about to make his appearance again. It had been far too long since he was awake. The world had forgotten who he was, what he was. It was going to be wild. The stands were packed full, the sun was shining down upon them, and the 11 genin that made it through were standing in front of one Uzumaki Naruto, the proctor of the third stage. He began to address the crowds. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I will be proctoring the third stage of the Chunin exams. The minds and hearts of the native Konoha civilians looked at him with disgust. Before we start, the Hokage will say a few words. He pointed to the Kage box where Mei, Hiruzen, and the Kazekage sat. It enraged him that one of his women had to sit next to that bastard. Was he truly that foolish? Did he truly think that that disguise was going to work? The eyes of the Kamikage saw everything. Hiruzen stood. Thanks everyone for coming to the Konoha Chunin selection exam, he said in a booming voice. Like Naruto, Hiruzen was skilled enough to enhance his vocal cords with chakra. We will now start the main tournament matches between the 11 participants who made it through the preliminaries. He gave the stadium a big smile. Please stay and watch until the end. He then gave the Kazekage a look over his shoulder. It was not a happy look. Naruto nodded and began. Alright, guys, this is the final test. His eyes scanned the genin among him. The arena is different, but the rules are the same as in the prelims, there are none. His eyes met Gaara's. You fight until one of you dies or acknowledges defeat. He then met the eyes of the other genin. But if I determine that the fight is over, I'll step in and stop it, you got that? After receiving nods, Naruto called out the first two names. Nara, Shikamaru and Temari, you two stay, the rest of you go to the waiting room. The genin not called made their way out of the arena while Shikamaru and Temari stayed. Begin. Naruto declared when they were the only ones on the field. Immediately, Temari took her fan off of her back and held it in an intimidating pose. Alright, lazy, let's get this over with, she explained aggressively. Shikamaru sighed and rubbed the back of his head in a disinterested manner. Women, his eyes drifted to the clouds, troublesome. Up in the stands, Anko, Kurenai, and Asuma all sat together. Asuma had a confident look on his face, but the two women, not so much. He's just running away from her, Kurenai said slowly, trying her best not to offend her lover's student. What's up with your kid, Asuma? Anko asked bluntly. She wasn't one to beat around the bush. It was always like that though. If there was an elephant in the room, she'd be the one to jump up and talk about it, regardless of tension. Asuma decided to ignore her bad manners and speak the truth. Trust me when I say that Shikamaru is most likely one of the only genin that will get a promotion, him and Sasuke, if Naruto really is his new sensei. Anko and Kurenai looked doubtful. That kid is like an old man. He likes to take things slowly. He sighed. And unfortunately, he has a nihilistic view on women, so this was a bad matchup for him. Well, he looks like an idiot down there, Anko said, once again being the blunt woman she was. She was finally getting back to normal. After last night, she felt better. Everything was okay now. Asuma snorted. You'd think that just by looking at him, but he's exactly the opposite. I gave him an IQ test and told him it was a game. The young Sarutobi shook his head. And what was his score? Kurine asked, curiously. Shikamaru has an IQ of 200. He said bluntly, taking a page out of Anko's book. Said blunt woman, and her fellow female widened their eyes. You're telling me that sexist Gaki down there is a genius? Anko almost shouted. Asuma smirked and nodded. He'll probably pass his father in strategic brilliance in a few years. His eyes never left his student. Shikamaru had just thrown a kunai with his shirt attached to it in the sky. Check. Shikaku? Kurinai asked in shock. Her man had to be overestimating his student because Shikaku had a mind that rivaled the night aims in strategy. Any more brilliant and you'd have the mind of a god. Shikamaru's battle strategy and tactics is good enough to make him jonin. If he was more dedicated and had the skills to back up his intelligence, he already would have joined our ranks. His eyes took in Naruto's form for a moment. I'm sure Naruto has already noticed him. He's been keeping my student close. It makes me think he's doing something, even more so now that he's apparently taken in Kakashi's student. It's almost like he's building an army or something. Anko looked at him suspiciously. So what if he was? She asked in a harsh voice. Anko. Kurinai scolded. It's fine, Kurinai. He turned to the snake user. I do not believe that Naruto is not loyal to Konoha, not in the slightest. He's probably more loyal than any of us. Anyone that has been under Kakashi's command when he was in the ANBU would never even think about leaving. Never mind harming our home. There wasn't a shinobi from Chunin up that hasn't heard of the legendary ANBU operative Inu. He was one of the most famous agents in the Corps, second only to Nezumi. I do however believe that he'll be taking on the most difficult missions given to anyone, and even though Shikamaru is a shinobi like everyone else, I don't wish for him to take those kinds of missions. Not yet at least. Anko still narrowed her eyes, but let the monkey off the hook. She would laugh about this later. She had just defended her lover for the first time since they were actually together. I've got my money on the Sunakunoichi. That lazy kid's got nothing on her. Kasumi, one of the ninja from Kiri, spoke. Sasuke chuckled softly to himself. Hearing this, Kasumi huffed and looked at him irritatingly. You got something to say, Uchiha? Did the duckbutt think, since the pineapple was from Konoha, that he was superior? No. Nothing at all, Kasumi of Kiri. Now that was a strange name. Mist of Mist. You don't think that Tsunami will win? She asked toughly. Sasuke shook his head. No. Shikamaru is a genius, he's smarter than my Shursho. He'll make Chunin for sure. And who exactly is your Shursho? She asked, clearly annoyed. It didn't help that she was actually attracted to the boy. That actually made it worse. The Kamikage of Konoha. He replied. Kasumi froze. That officially ended the conversation. There wasn't a person in all of Mizu no Kuni that hadn't heard of the bringer of hope. He set their country free after all. A few minutes later, and the match was over. Deciding that staying silent was stupid, she called the Uchiha out on his prediction. I thought you said the Nara was going to win. She said, now a little calmer. Sasuke smirked. No. I said that he'd make Chunin. Kasumi looked at him confusedly. But he lost. Naruto's words rang through his head. We do things right, and our way, or we don't do them at all. It's not that he lost, but how he lost. He did things his own way, and because of the way he did it, he'll definitely be promoted. He saw how confused the girl was. He sighed. You don't have to win to be promoted. And just because you win, doesn't mean you'll be promoted. Naruto's voice was heard throughout the stadium, interrupting their conversation. The next match will be Hyuga Hinata of Konoha versus Kasumi of Kiri. Kasumi smirked confidently. Well, I hope you get a good look at my power, because you'll have to fight me sometime. She fist pumped. Sasuke turned back to the arena. Good luck. She didn't show that she liked his words. You're really going to need it. She didn't show that his words pissed her off. Hinata is the heiress of the most powerful clan in Konoha. Kasumi had started walking, but stopped when he said that last bit. I thought the Uchiha were the most powerful clan in Konoha. We were. He said softly. Figuring he wasn't going to speak again, Kasumi left, ready to prove herself to him for some reason. How has your stay in Konoha been so far, Mizukage Dono? Hiruzen asked, curious about the beautiful woman. He had no doubt that this woman was already in love with his shadow. If he were like his IWA counterpart, he'd use their relationship to better his village, but he was nothing like Inoki. And the fact that Naruto could actually kill him and everyone in Konoha within a few seconds if he pushed him too far was something. Oh, he had no doubt that he'd follow his orders, but after his mind broke, he'd probably break everything around him. The scariest part about it all was that it would be easy for the blonde to kill everyone in Konoha. Mei had to push down the blush that threatened to wash over her face when her mind went to the events of last night. It's been very nice. It's a lot different than Kiri, but I can't really find anything bad to say. She answered honestly. I'm glad to hear that. We try to welcome all of our guests the best we can. Hiruzen replied. The next match is about to begin. Mei was trying her best to keep her attention on the genin that were about to fight, but her eyes kept gravitating towards her angel. It was like she couldn't resist him. It was like he was making her watch him. She really was head over heels for him. As soon as Naruto said for them to start, Kasumi rushed the Hyuga, and Hinata activated her dojutsu. Once Kasumi noticed the girl's eyes, she stopped her rush. The Uchiha had warned her that Hinata was a strong opponent, so rushing someone who wielded the world's most lethal taijutsu was probably not the smartest idea. So plan B it was then. When Zabuza-sensei showed up, he had helped her learn silent killing. That, coupled with her strangely advanced usage with Kirigakure no Jutsu, she had become quite the kunoichi. When Kasumi smirked, Hinata noticed the chakra-laced mist rise from the ground. A few seconds later, if that, the two were completely covered in a foggy mist. Since the mist was riddled with her chakra, Hinata was not able to locate Kasumi. This was bad. She was a sitting duck like this. She wanted to wait and use this in a later round, but it looked like she had no choice. Stepping into a Juken stance, Hinata sent chakra to her fingertips. She didn't really have to see for this technique to work. Kasumi would do the rest for her. Shugo Hakurokujian, show. She shouted using the technique Naruto helped her with when he was attached to her team. She had already created it, but with the help the blonde provided, she was able to get it down. Her arms became a blur as thin, sharp, chakra blades were emitted from her fingers, creating a protective dome. It only took a few seconds for Kasumi to get hit a few times by the technique, forcing her to let up on the mist since even she couldn't see in it. With the mist gone, and her opponent injured, Hinata lunged. Show T. She shouted, thrusting the bottom of her palm into Kasumi's stomach. With wide eyes, Kasumi fell to the ground, unable to move. She had serious internal injuries, and she needed a medic right away if she wanted to live. Naruto decided to stop the fight, seeing that Kasumi could no longer continue. Even though it was allowed, he really didn't want anyone dying. After rushing the wounded genin to the hospital, Naruto smirked as he called the next two names. Next match, Uchiha Sasuke vs Gaara. This was it. It was time for the Uchiha to show the world who and what he was. Everyone was going to see the bringer of Hope's shadow. The match everyone has wanted to see. The Kazekage said. I've heard. Interesting rumors, Hokage Dano. Hiruzen looked at Orochimaru and raised an eyebrow. And what rumors have you heard? He asked, going along with this foolish game. Oh, you know. That your shadow has acquired a shadow as well. He replied. It was clear as to what he was talking about, and Hiruzen was not happy. This was the perfect time to warn his previous student. Oh, that rumor. He smirked. You see, Kazekage Dano, Uchiha Sasuke has officially accepted an apprenticeship from Uzumaki Naruto. He chuckled. I almost feel sorry for your son. His eyes turned to the two genin that were facing each other, ready to start their match, because Sasuke-kun has spent an entire month under my shadow. And if I know anything, Naruto has already done it. Done what? He asked, curiously. Hiruzen did not reply. He just silently watched as Naruto began the fight. Created a monster. The words to begin were blocked out by the bloodlust Gaara felt. Mother kept screaming at him, saying something like his opponent belonged to the blonde Jonin proctoring the match, but he didn't care. He really wanted to prove his existence. He really wanted to wake up. Sasuke was silent, also not moving at all. He took in a deep breath, taking delight in the way he felt. He was awake, and it was time to prove himself to Konoha. He wasn't the last Uchiha. He wasn't the village sweetheart. He was Sasuke, the bringer of Hope's shadow. He was the Kamikaze's eyes, and it was time to show the world what he truly was now. Sasuke vanished. When Gaara suddenly felt a sharp pain in the back of his head, he was confused. Was Mother so upset with him that she didn't protect him? That was definitely the Uchiha's left fist, hitting him directly in the back of the head. No, it wasn't because Mother was mad. The reason for Gaara sustaining his first injury, no matter how minor, was because Sasuke's speed had tripled since last month. Naruto was a sadistic slave driver when it came to training, and he was now a lot stronger because of it. Sand suddenly shot up from behind the red-haired boy, trying to run Sasuke through, but with no such luck. Before the sand got within inches of him, Sasuke flipped backwards, going through hand seals as he went through the air. Within seconds, Sasuke called out the name of his technique. Katan, Goenka. 3 giant bullets of fire slammed down on Gaara, erupting into a geyser of flame. The technique surprised a lot of the civilians, but all the shinobi could see that it didn't hurt the Jinchuriki. When the flames went down, Gaara could be seen shielded by sand, completely untouched by the powerful technique. Sasuke smirked. He almost broke through that sand armor of his, so he knew it was possible. Going through the correct hand seals, the stadium lit up with a startling white blue, and the sound of thousands of birds chirping was heard. Gaara had already seen this technique, and the Uchiha had to be close to the target to actually hit him with it. Smirking, he used his chakra-laced sand from his gourd and wrapped his form into a compact bubble-like sand shield with sharp, sand spears adorning the outside. There was no way he could penetrate the wall, and if he tried, he would be impaled. So now what would his prey do? Sasuke smirked, mirroring his Shursho. Naruto was very impressed with his student's ability in improving techniques. Kakashi was going to want to learn this one. Lifting up his left arm and aiming the Chidori at the Sunanin, Sasuke did something that should have been impossible. Kakashi didn't know what was going to happen, but he knew it was going to be something he wanted to record with his Sharingan. He was able to lift his Hatai 8 just in time to witness it. Chidori Iso. He said calmly as he watched the bright blue Chidori spear-like blade pierce the supposed absolute defense. Within his little sand shield, no one could see what was happening, but they could definitely hear the screams. The hawk had made the tanuki bleed. Naruto's smirk turned sinister as he looked up. Feathers began to litter the stadium, an obvious genjutsu. So Orochimaru's plan was to put everyone to sleep, then. Naruto smirked as he put his hand in a half-ram seal. Kai. His chakra flooded the arena, releasing the genjutsu before it even truly started. The moment the first feather fell, a purple barrier sprang to life around the Kage box. Naruto's hands clenched into fists. Mei was in there, with Orochimaru. He was not happy. Before he could do anything, Temari and Kankuro took off with Gaara. He couldn't follow. He had other things to do. Sasuke, he called out to his shadow. The Uchiha was at his side, ready for his orders. Before he started, Kakashi, Anko, Guy, Asuma, and Kurenai shunshined to his side. Gaara is your opponent. Nothing has changed. Sasuke smirked before vanishing. Anko, you should go with him. Anko nodded, taking a moment to look the blonde in the eyes before vanishing. Kakashi, you and Guy take the enemy shinobi in the village. Kakashi and Guy nodded. Kakashi, you're in charge of the initial assault. He looked to Asuma and Kurenai. I need the Genin and Chunin out of the way. Have them all defend the monument. Asuma narrowed his eyes in confusion. Genin and Chunin are supposed to evacuate the villagers, though. Naruto smirked. I've got that covered. The chakra of the Kyuubi sprang to life around the Uzumaki, covering him in a translucent boiling red. He clapped his hands together, and the cries of confusion and fear were heard throughout the village. All around them, the civilians lit up in the very same red cloak as the Jinchuriki. It's time the son surpassed the father. The cloaks of the civilians suddenly began to connect, leading to the source in a thick line of Bija chakra. They were now connected to the very person they despised. That's when the blonde whispered something that should have been impossible. Hirashin no jutsu. Kurenai and Asuma went wide-eyed before Naruto, and every civilian within Konoha simply disappeared in crimson light. Yumino Irika had been prompted to lead his students to the evac center within the Hokage monument an hour before the exams began. That's why he was there when suddenly, without warning, the entire village was transported to his location. The room they were in was very large and very empty 1 second, and the next it was full. He didn't know why the civilians had powerful red chakra around them, but a random loudmouthed woman gave him a good picture. The demon, he did something to us. That statement sent the whole lot of them into an uproar. They didn't even think that he had saved them. They automatically went to him doing something sinister to his own people. Irika scowled. These were the people the bringer of hope protected? These were the people the Kamikage fought for, gave everything up for? He opened his mouth, ready to scold these people like the children they were acting like, but was stopped by the softest of whispers. Thank you, Naruto-san. The voice was small, but it was heard. Getting the attention of the others, all eyes were suddenly on Ayam, the young girl who helped her father with his ramen stand. So you condone the demon, do you, girl? A random man said, his face twisting into rage. He's not a demon. He's our guardian angel. Ayam replied heatedly. She had known Naruto at a very young age, and she knew, without a doubt, that he was truly an amazing person. Not once has he hurt any of us. The man who had spoken up was suddenly quiet before the borderline, crying young woman. You people know his moniker. He's the bringer of hope. The other countries are either scared of him or almost worship him for his greatness, and you just attack him with harsh words when he saves us. Her hands were balled into fists. You're all cowards. Enough, Ayam-san. The demon said. Turning back to where the blonde was, all eyes were on the Kamikage. You cannot teach the blind to see if they wish not to. And I do not hate, or even dislike, the ignorant. He turned to Irika, giving him a nod and a small smile as thanks for what he had been about to do. What's going on, Naruto? The academy instructor asked. Are we being invaded? Oto and Suna have decided to attack our home. By this time, the Genin and Chunin arrived. The attack is being led by Orochimaru of the Sannin. What? Yamanaka Ino shouted, making her way to the front of the crowd. She and Choji were told to protect the villagers. What are you doing here then? You need to get out there and save the village. She's right, Naruto. What's the plan? Choji asked, a little calmer than his female teammate. The smirk on his face terrified the civilians. Men do not fear other men, they fear what other men are capable of. He took in a deep breath. They fear people like me. His eyes turned gold. They fear monsters. Even Choji and Ino gulped. They could clearly feel the chakra the blonde was building up within himself. They could feel his emotions, as if they could see it with their own eyes. The Kamikage was awake. The monster was hungry. And the bringer of hope was excited. The plan is simple. He said in a hushed tone. Death to all enemies of heaven. Before their very eyes, a true monster vanished in a gold flash. As Sasuke rushed through the trees that made up Konoha's outskirts, he smirked as he felt her presence. From above him, Mitarashi Anko leapt down the trees he was running on, keeping the pace he set. Naruto sent you as backup? Sasuke asked, never taking his eyes off of the path ahead. He liked to think that, while watching his front, he never had to look back. He never had to look back at what he used to be, and how he used to feel. Never again. Yeah, Anko said, got a problem with that? She said in an aggressive tone. Nope. Sasuke said, kind of surprising the snake user. Naruto was right, the boy wasn't a little prick anymore. He was a true shinobi, and could actually play nice with others. After a small silence, Anko had to ask the one question that wouldn't leave her mind. So, just how strong are you now? She didn't miss the little smirk on the Uchiha's face. He didn't answer her, which kind of answered her question in a weird kind of way. The kid was probably high Chunin low Jonin levels now. What else could he be after spending an entire month doing nothing but training with someone like Naruto? We're close. He said, his Sharingan blazing to life. Gaara's mine. I don't care about the other two. Anko huffed. Don't go acting like you're the boss of me just because you're Soldier Boy's student. I'm still a Jonin, don't forget that. Again, Sasuke did nothing but smirk. Just how strong was the raven-haired boy? Hiruzen stood next to Mei on the tiled rooftop, staring at the man he had so much hope for in the past. His sickly smile and cold eyes made the old Sarutobi's heart ache. His complete disregard for the home he once claimed to protect forever added age to the Hokage's very soul. Taking a moment to look at the beautiful woman beside him, the god of shinobi spoke, his nerves steeled and his heart forgotten, as was what the shinobi warrior does. "Orochimaru, you foolish child," said Snake chuckled. It was a nasty, revolting thing. "Ah, sensei, you still know how to make me laugh." His expression then darkened. "It is you who is the child. You lack vision," he sighed. "Look at you. You're only getting older, aging away. Every time you take breath, you're closer to death." He shook his head. "Whereas I will grow younger with every shedding." He peeled at the flesh around his face, revealing another, cleaner version of himself. "It's time for you to die, old man." Hiruzen smirked as he felt his presence. "Ah, on the contrary, Orochimaru, it is you who shall finally die." With those words announced a golden flash, and from that golden flash, God had his angel at his side. "Hokage-sama," he greeted his commander, glad that nothing had begun yet. He knew that Mei could handle herself, she was a Kage-ranked kunoichi after all, but he still didn't like her being so close to the snake. He was a clever bastard and an underhanded, sneaky one at that. "Naruto. Let us show my former student the power of Konoha," Hiruzen ordered. Taking a step forward, Mei stared at the backs of two of the most powerful shinobi in the world. She knew to stay out of this. This was a battle amongst previous student, teacher, and current student. When she felt the chakra the two began to flare, she took a step back. They were truly gods. Humans couldn't have such potent chakra, could they? Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. This was too much. The assault began. Ram, horse, snake, dragon, rat, ox, tiger. Ram, horse, snake, dragon, rat, ox, tiger. Keton, Karyu Enden. Hiruzen let loose the dragon-shaped jutsu. Keton, Karyu Enden. Naruto let loose the dragon-shaped jutsu. The blazing dragons rushed Orochimaru. Naruto and Hiruzen had perfect control over their chakra, and were very familiar with each other, so when the dragons collided into each other, they combined, forming an even larger jutsu. Instead of hitting the snake, it hit a coffin? Mei was confused. What was a coffin doing here? Naruto and Hiruzen widened their eyes. That was... Orochimaru smirked as the three coffins opened, revealing something that thoroughly angered Naruto. The Shodai, Nidame, and Yondame had been brought back with the Edo Tensei. He could see their lifeless eyes, a sign that they weren't all there. He could see how stiff they were. How dare that bastard? "I'm going to kill you," Naruto whispered. "I'm going to enjoy it, too." This time when he spoke, it was the voice of two entities. Naruto was now syncing with Kurama, and the two were going to rip everything to shreds. The Yondame threw his signature three-pronged kunai, intent on using his speed to end the fight quickly, like he always did. But before it barely even left his hands, it was suddenly grabbed by someone's hand. The Yondame's blackened eyes met gilded ones as Naruto hiroshined to the marked kunai, swinging his natural energy-infused fist at his father's head. Using natural speed, Minato dodged the fist just barely. Naruto smirked though, he didn't have to make contact to land a punch. Out of nowhere, the blonde Kage was pulverized by the natural energy that enthusiastically obeyed the bringer of hope. 1. His battle sense heightened, he could feel the powerful Suiton technique headed right towards him. He hiroshined to the fallen kunai the Yondame left. Looking behind him, he could see the Nidame following up with another jutsu when the first was dodged. He then cursed in anger when he saw the Shodai heading for Mei. Hiruzen was busy with Orochimaru, so that only left one thing. It was a good thing that these three weren't at their full strength, because if they were, it would have been a whole lot harder fighting three of the world's most powerful men. Without hand seals or a word, 3 Kage Bunshins appeared next to the blonde. With the Nidame busy with the clones, he could take the main threat. Mei was a powerful kunoichi, but Senju Hashirama was ridiculously powerful even when his power was more than halved, and his techniques placed in the massively destructible category. In all honesty, Hashirama was one of the only people Naruto didn't look forward to fighting. Even the bringer of hope was wary of Mokuton. Creating a Rasengan in his right hand, he pumped it with natural energy. He jumped into the air, falling down like a warrior angel upon the second man to hold his Gigi's title. Senpo, Cho Otama Rasengan. Looking up, Mei's eyes widened. Seeing that technique up close was a completely different experience than seeing it from a distance. It was massive, and felt as if it would kill anything in view. Mokutan, Hobi, no Jutsu. Wood from beneath the tile shot up, forming an intricate wooden dome with the shape of a dragon's face. The oversized Rasengan smashed into the defensive dome that once took a Bijidama without a scratch. When the smoke let up, there was a visible crack. Naruto smirked. Yeah, that really boosted his confidence. Mokutan Hijitsu, Jukai Koten. From the giant, dragon-faced dome, branches sprung to life all over the tiled roof. Naruto cursed, throwing a tri-pronged kunai of his own at Mei. When it landed at her feet, Naruto Hiroshined to it and grabbed his woman, threw the kunai towards Hiruzen, and Hiroshined to his side with Mei. The memories of his clones hit him, so he knew that the powerful jutsu was about to be released. Hiruzen and Naruto turned as one, almost like they were mirroring each other, and flew through the seals faster than humanly possible. Suetun, Suidanya. Tobirama shot his high-pressured beam of pure water with enough force to kill. Doton, Dorihiki. Hiruzen opened his mouth, mud flowing out. As the mud hardened, the three of them were pushed upwards, avoiding the powerful blast of water. After the water was avoided, Naruto continued, Hiruzen not far behind. Doton, Doryu Taiga. The huge wall of earth they were standing on suddenly shifted, reverting back to mud. Hiruzen had finished the required hand seals. Doton, Doryuden. From the muddy earth, a dragon-like head rose, firing balls of mud at the water legend. Keton, Karyuden. Naruto breathed fire, igniting the earth shot at his commander's previous sensei. Suddenly, the trees that were brought forth from the first Hokage sprang to life, shielding his brother. From behind the powerful wood, they couldn't see the tri-pronged kunai sailing through the air. Suddenly, the sun was blocked from view. Hirashin, and I no Dan. With a gold flash, Naruto dropped a Rasen Shuriken on top of the Nidame's head, demolishing the Kage, sending him back to the pure world. Hiruzen smirked. Adding natural energy to his attacks to kill the dead was as brilliant as it was scary. Brilliant because it took his shadow mere seconds to come up with his plan of attack when he took the Yondaime out, and scary because he was able to kill what was already dead. He was doing the opposite of what he did to Hayate, and Hiruzen honestly didn't know where Naruto's strength would stop. Naruto, Hiruzen spoke, looking Orochimaru in the eyes the whole time. Show my foolish pupil the strength of a true monster. It was time to show the snake the absolute kamikage. Naruto smirked. This was it. Being awake felt wonderful. Alright then, the blonde began. I guess now's as good a time as any to share another secret with you, Mei-chan. Mei narrowed her eyes in confusion before Naruto's smirk grew. Let's do it, son. The blonde outstretched his arm, ready to use this technique for the first time. When Mei felt the familiar buildup of Yoton chakra, her eyes widened in shock. This was impossible. He brought his arm above his head, the technique growing too big to stay in front of him. Mei couldn't understand how this was possible. And then it made sense. He had fought and killed Yoton no Rashi, Jinchuriki, to the Yonbi. He had fought and killed the Yondaime Mizukijigura, Jinchuriki, of the Sanbai. Did he house multiple bijou? When he called his technique, even Hiruzen and Orochimaru took a moment to appreciate the brilliance in it. It was pure destruction. Senpo, Yoton, Rasen Shuriken. How could one young person, house multiple bijou? It should be impossible, even for Naruto. Yet, here he was, using the powerful lava chakra of the Yonbi, even though he was the Kyuubi's container. He had always said that he stood with the bijou. He actually meant it. Naruto let loose his technique. The ANBU outside watched on with stillness that no one should have during an enemy invasion. They were watching the power of their fellow operative. Never before had they been so proud to be ANBU than when they saw the lava technique Nezumi used to totally decimate the Shodai. The technique was so powerful that it ripped a hole in the purple barrier the four Otoni were sustaining, and flew very, very high into the sky. It repaired itself right away, but the fact that it was damaged at all said something about the power behind the technique. When it blew, it erupted into a giant ball of lava, causing every building in Konoha to shake. It said that the Shodai was gone. And he was. The lava Rasen Shuriken was laced with enough natural energy to kill Kami himself. Hiruzen still hadn't moved, just staring at the path of carnage his shadow's technique left. He then smirked. He expected nothing less from his warrior. "I've got it from here, Naruto," the Hokage suddenly said. "You take the Mizukage to her people, and then clear Konoha of all these pesky insects." Naruto was hesitant at first, wanting to end the fight right away and be over with it, but he could see the look his commander had in his eye. It was the look every shinobi respected. It was the look of the god of shinobi. "Hi, Hokage-sama," Naruto bowed his head. He then took the shocked Mei by the hand, and the two of them disappeared in a golden flash. Orochimaru smiled sinisterly. "As I said, sensei," he began, "such a fool." Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. "It is time we end this, Orochimaru-kun." Hiruzen bit his finger and went through another set of hand seals. "Kuchios, Anko, Enma." Orochimaru narrowed his eyes as he saw the large, tiger-striped cloaked monkey standing next to his sensei. "So it finally begins," Enma said, already knowing what his old friend was about to do. "Henge, Kongonioi." In a puff of smoke, Hiruzen held the weapon that made the Hokage such a scary opponent, even to Orochimaru. "So you're finally serious, then?" Orochimaru opened his mouth, a long blade sliding out from his throat. "You die today, sensei," he said after he finally held the Kusanagi within his right hand. The Sandaime rushed the snake. Sasuke didn't even stop when he saw Shino battling it out with Kankuro. He knew that the bug user was good, and wouldn't have too much trouble fighting the puppet weirdo. He had bigger fish to fry, and that fish was a tanuki. He was prepared. He had trained. This was it. It was time to wake up. Coming to a stop on a branch, standing in front of him and Anko was his prey. "Gaara," Sasuke smirked. "Let's have some fun." Gaara snarled, his half-sand body seeming to fall apart on itself, only to repair not seconds later. "I will prove my existence," Gaara shouted. Sasuke chuckled. He had no idea what it meant to be awake. He thought that killing was the way. He thought that bathing in the blood of thousands would prove the existence of one. He was wrong. And Sasuke was determined to show him this. Sasuke vanished. What was that?" Mei stuttered out, still shocked at what she had seen. Naruto paused for a moment. They were in front of other Kiri shinobi right now, and as much as he loved Mei, he didn't trust the secrets of Konoha to just anyone. "I'll tell you when we don't have so much company, Mei-chan." He then smiled. "Watch over your people." A snake being impaled by the katana of a toad was very easy to spot. "I've got to go meet a pervert about snake killing lessons." Mei just nodded silently, still unaware of what just happened. That technique. It was more powerful than anything she could do with her own lava techniques. She felt the force, the heat, the power behind it, and it was something only. It was something only a god could create. Was Naruto a? "I love you," he whispered so that only she could hear, vanishing in another gold flash. That's when Mei snapped out of her stupor. Love. He loved her, and she loved him. It didn't matter what he was, or what he wasn't. Uzumaki Naruto was hers and Anko's, and that's all that mattered. "I love you, too, Naruto-kun," she whispered back, a small smile on her face. Taking in a deep breath, she hardened her features. She was the Godai Mizukage, and her people expected her to act like the powerful kunoichi they knew she could be. Gaara whipped his sand-covered arm, shuriken made completely of sand following the motion, flying at the Uchiha. He didn't care about the woman standing back, watching the whole match with interested eyes. Sasuke was his target, his way of proving his existence. Easily dodging the attack, Sasuke stopped on a tree branch. "You know, my Shursho had the same problem as you." Another volley of sand-made shuriken was thrown at him, and again, he easily dodged them. "You Jinchuriki are given a hard life. You know nothing about my life." Gaara roared, the sand covering his right arm extending, crushing everything in its path. Trees were snapped, leaves were split, and the wind picked up. My Shursho couldn't wake up from that nightmare, that feeling of suffocating. Anko's eyes narrowed. What was Sasuke doing? He was just talking about his teacher while dodging. What was the point of it all? Gaara screamed, the Uchiha's words obviously touching him. "Die," he shouted, his extended sand arm swinging across the clearing, everyone present, Anko, Sasuke, and Temari, having to get out of the way or be crushed. That's when everything seemed to happen at once. A voice he was now very familiar with cried out in pain. The sand shot up high into the sky, forming into the bijou within the Sunanin. Anko's eyes widened, both at the apparent bijou towering over them, and at the sight to their right. Temari went as cold as ice, her heart practically stopping and her stomach in knots, as she stared at what she feared most. Sasuke froze. Dust filled the air. Everything seemed so silent to him. It was like time froze, not him. He turned his head to the right, taking in what he knew already was there. Haruno Sakura was within Anko's arms, the woman's wide, panicked eyes telling him all he needed to know. Why? Her emerald eyes were fixed on him, but didn't truly see him. Why was this? The blood slipping out of the side of her mouth fell to the ground, dripping in a never-ending loop. Why was this happening? The blood covering Anko was not her own. Why was this happening again? Gaara spoke, half of his form buried within the giant Tanuki's head. You see? Nothing ever lasts forever. He chuckled darkly. She was important to you, right? She was all he had left. Gaara continued. By taking her away from you, I proved my existence. I will last forever through this. The one who took her away from the one called Uchiha. She was his last chance. Anko yelled. We have to get her to a medic. Sasuke did not hear her. Suddenly, the world did stop. Suddenly, the brights got brighter, the darks darker. The entire world became clear, and Sasuke now knew what to do. His mind. It broke. Anko felt a sudden chill, fear touching her in a way she had never felt before. She felt darkness the likes of which even Orochimaru was incapable of. She felt anger the like of which even her own hate towards said snake could never reach. She gulped. This felt like the opposite of Naruto. Where he was powerful, bright, and warm, this feeling was powerful, dark, and cold. Sasuke brought Gaara and his oversized Tanuki form within his sight. Anko caught a glimpse of the boy's eyes. They were now very different from the regular Sharingan. Sasuke whispered, Mangekyo Sharingan. He then proceeded to laugh, hysterically. These eyes, they meant nothing. These cursed eyes were exactly that, a curse. What good were these eyes if he had to lose the very person he wanted to protect to attain them? Gaara. Sasuke stopped laughing. Even Anko could feel the dark chakra building up behind the Uchiha's left eye. Words that weren't his own found their way onto his tongue. Sasuke whispered his technique, letting the winds carry his voice off in the distance. Amaterasu. Sitting atop Gamahiro alongside his godfather, Naruto was suddenly hit with the darkest chakra he had ever felt. When the sounds of a roaring bija hit the ears of the shinobi, everyone turned to the direction of the sound. The village was just about clear of enemies, and Naruto just sat down next to his sensei, spreading his senses over the village. Sasuke and Gaara were outside of the village, but he was able to feel Sasuke very clear right now. Such sinister darkness. So it finally happened, then. Jiraiya saw his godson smirk, and then disappear, obviously curious of what happened. He knew he'd be alright by himself, so he continued his game of slice and dice with Orochimaru's summons. After exchanging powerful blows, the two S-ranked shinobi came to a standstill, observing the fatigue of their opponent. Hiruzen was classified as an SS-ranked shinobi in his prime, but his age forced him into the S-rank category again. He was still a powerful opponent, but it was obvious that Orochimaru was faring better than his sensei. The snake Sannin smiled. It was time to add insult to injury. The tiled roof between them distorted, a fourth coffin rising. Hiruzen's eyes widened. Why did he believe there would only be 3 coffins? He gripped his powerful staff, readying himself for whoever was being resurrected to fight him. When the coffin opened with a sickening screech, Hiruzen almost dropped his weapon. Bibiwako-chan, he whispered, his heart in a mixture of emotions. Black. That's all Sasuke was able to see, to feel. The black in his heart, the pain of losing his family climbing out of his soul, that he tried so hard to bury, greeting the pain of losing his only hope. The black in his eyes, atop the bloody red, the same color coming from that hope he wanted to protect. The black of his soul, tainted with the curse of hatred. The black of the burning, screaming bija behind him, crumbling from the world's most lethal fire technique, named after the sun goddess herself. The black of his hair, shrouding his cursed eyes from the world. Black. Sasuke. That was Naruto's voice. Sure show, he whispered back, knowing the bringer of hope could bring the colors back. He knew his friend, his greatest friend, his only friend, could get rid of the black. He was terrified of the black. That is not Sakura. And just like that, color found its way back into the world. What? He asked. He raised his head to look at the body within Anko's arms. He caught a glimpse of the smirk on Naruto's face, before witnessing the pink-haired girl disappear in a puff of smoke. All the genin and chunin are guarding the evacuation center. He put a hand on the startled Uchiha's shoulder. Sakura is at the monument, he smiled, she's safe. Again, intense anger welled up within the raven-haired boy. He lashed out at the blonde with a sloppy, predictable strike. Why, he shouted, why would you do that to me? He trusted Naruto. He put his trust into someone again, after swearing to never do that very thing. Continuous sloppy strikes were thrown at the Kamikage, and each one was dodged with little effort. To give you the power to protect the very person you thought was lost. Naruto finally shouted, delivering a punch to the Uchiha's gut. The air in Sasuke's lungs left him, saliva forced out with the impact. The raven-haired boy looked the blonde in the eyes, seeing the steel in them. I told you, Sasuke, that I was going to help you acquire the power, the eyes, to protect what was precious to you. Naruto's eyes flickered to Anko. You're never stronger than when you're fighting for those you love. He helped his student to his feet, and Sasuke, he brought his attention to the now falling sands that once made up a bijou. You just proved that you have something, someone, precious to fight for, not only to me, but to yourself. He smiled. I helped you gain the eyes that you should only have gained with the loss of that precious person. He knew Sasuke understood, he had to, and she's still alive, Sasuke. Sakura is still breathing, and now, with those eyes, you can make sure she stays that way, forever. Sasuke allowed the tears that he tried to hold back to finally fall, not caring that someone other than Naruto was near. Sakura was alive, so there was still hope. He had the Mangekyo Sharingan now, so he could make sure that hope stayed safe. A small smile found itself on the Uchiha's face, but right before he could thank his Shursho, grunts of pain were heard. The three shinobi turned, looking at the exhausted form before them. Oh well, Sasuke thought, Naruto doesn't need words to know the truth. A short while after, Naruto, Sasuke and Anko found their way back into the village, and immediately, Naruto's heart seemed to stop. JGG, he whispered, both Anko and Sasuke hearing the fear in his voice. He placed his hands on both Sasuke and Anko, and the three of them vanished in a gold flash. When they appeared next to Jiraiya, Rohan, and the ANBU who had watched the battle against Orochimaru from the beginning to end, surrounding a still body, everyone froze. No one knew if they wanted to be this close to the boy right now. Anko saw Mei and the other two kunoichi that were with her the night they all synced land next to them, sad looks on their faces. Jiraiya had the look he used as the legendary sage of Mount Myaboku. He was Jiraiya of the Sannin right now, not Naruto's godfather, friend, and fatherly figure. Naruto dash. That didn't matter though, because he wasn't just Naruto right now, he was the bringer of hope, the Kamikage. What happened? He cut Jiraiya off, not wanting to be spoken to like a child, even though he was only 12. He deserved the respect of every shinobi, even someone like Jiraiya. Jiraiya looked to the ANBU, who had witnessed it all. The obvious captain spoke. When you left, Hokage-sama engaged Orochimaru in a fierce battle of Kenjutsu. Shortly after, though. He clenched his fist, a rare sign of emotion, even if that emotion was anger. Orochimaru had a fourth coffin prepared. Naruto's face was emotionless. Orochimaru summoned Sandame-sama's wife, Biwako-san. Naruto's control slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing the enormous chakra he was building up within his coils, causing most of the shinobi, even the ANBU to whimper. Jiraiya was the only one who showed nothing at this, but only because he had felt stronger bursts than this in the past. The ANBU continued, if hesitantly. Hokage-sama was struggling emotionally to fight his own wife, but was eventually able to subdue her. He shook his head. That's when Hokage-sama was stabbed through the back with Orochimaru's blade. Naruto's breathing kept a slow rhythm. He knew he couldn't finish the fight, so to make sure Orochimaru couldn't continue the invasion, Hokage-sama used the Shiki Fujin. For some reason, Orochimaru was not sealed, but his arms seemed to petrify. Jiraiya stepped in. He probably couldn't take the entire soul with him, so cut off the use of his chakra. He sighed. Hiruzen-sensei's gone, Naruto. The blonde was silent. His face did not betray anything about how he was feeling. His posture said nothing, almost like he was no longer in his own body. No one spoke, not wanting to interrupt whatever the bringer of hope was thinking. That is, until Sasuke put a hand on his Shursho's shoulder. Naruto turned to face the Uchiha, his eyes meeting a smirking Sasuke. He gave his friend a look, and nodded his head in an understanding manner. You once told me 2 things that made me respect you more than anything. Sasuke began. You said that, for the Hokage, for the god of heaven, you'd fight the Shinigami itself. He smirked again, chuckling. I didn't believe you, not until you told me the most important thing about you. Naruto smirked, surprising the other shinobi around him. Sasuke and Naruto uttered the words at the same time. I never go back on my word, that's my ninja way. I never go back on my word, that's my ninja way. Sasuke gave the biggest smile he'd given since he was a child, mirrored by Naruto. Jiraiya called out, hoping he was wrong about what his godson had in mind. He couldn't finish the sentence though. The Kamikage had already sped through the hand seals. Snake, boar, ram, rabbit, dog, rat, bird, horse, snake. Naruto clapped his hands, pumping both yin and yang natural energy into the jutsu. Usually, only the person the technique is being used on and the user can see the death god, but with the powerful natural energy flowing through it, everyone could very clearly see the terrifying form of the Shinigami. Shiki Fujin. Naruto whispered. The blood of everyone present froze, even Jiraiya. This was an actual god, staring at his godson with expectant eye. Those cold, dark eyes that every man, no matter how powerful, fears. The air became cold, the entire village silent. Naruto. He was about to make history. Sasuke smirked. The gods finally meet. One mortal, the other spiritual. Anko and Mei looked at the Uchiha with crazy eyes. How could he be so calm in a situation like this? The god of death was literally among them. And then it hit them. Sasuke was able to smirk because Naruto was smirking. Sasuke knew that, while Naruto was around, nothing could hurt them. You can't have him. The Uzumaki said calmly. The Shinigami just looked back at its newest summoner. I said, Naruto flared his monstrous chakra, the sheer size of it shaking the entire village, you can't have my Gigi. Naruto rushed the Shinigami, slamming his open palm into the god's gut. Give him back. As he pulled back, a thin, blue silhouette followed, attached to a gold, transparent beam of energy. The bringer of hope was doing the impossible, and his feet made the Shinigami's eyes widen. The god immediately wrapped his own hand around the blue form, pulling back. You can't have him. The voice of both Naruto and Kurama screamed, pulling back with greater force. Suddenly, Naruto's chakra spiked. The shinobi present went to their knees, unable to stand the powerful presence around them. Again, it spiked, even more so than the first. It became hard to breathe, and Naruto wasn't done yet. His chakra tripled with the next spike, this time, the distinct feel of Bija chakra joining it. He wasn't done yet. The people in the Hokage monument, shinobi, and civilians alike dropped to their knees, the brightest, warmest, and largest presence bringing them down. Like it was demanding the mere mortals to obey. And they did, they obeyed, kneeling. It was frightening, reassuring, and beautiful all at the same time. The weaker civilians weren't sure how they hadn't lost consciousness yet. It was like the presence, the chakra, wouldn't let them pass out. It was commanding them to witness its awesome power, commanding them to recognize it. The chakra had a will of its own, and that will wanted to be heard. They listened, truly listened. They obeyed. The short, aged man fell from his hovering position above the ground, meeting the grassy earth. His entire body screamed at him, begging to turn around, to go home. He didn't know what the hell this was. It was like something not human was screaming, screaming to be heard, screaming to protect, to save. Was this chakra? Was mere chakra bringing him to his knees? He looked over his shoulder, his eyes widening when he saw it. His entire army was in the same position as him. They were brought to their knees. They obeyed. Orochimaru looked on in fear, something even he hadn't truly felt in years, as he and his accomplices were brought to their knees, unable to breathe, to move, to think. All they could do was shake in fear and obey. They obeyed the screaming chakra, because that's all that they could do. The presence commanded obedience, and that's exactly what it got. They obeyed. Not many people, if any, can claim to have heard the voice of the death god. Even fewer, however, could claim to have heard the death god shout in exertion. Whatever it was they were fighting over must have been important, because the chakra Naruto was unleashing was tearing the village apart. Entire buildings were lifted into the sky, along with trees and rocks, all gravitating towards the sky because of the power one blonde boy was using. He was not going to lose him. I promised him that I'd even fight you for him. The voice of the sinking Naruto and Kurama said. And I never go back on my word. Naruto's chakra once again increased, tearing the ground they stood on to pieces. Because that's my. With the next increase in chakra, the Shinigami did something that terrified those present. It looked at Naruto with fearful eyes. Nindo, he shouted, ripping the blue form from the Shinigami's clutches. It obeyed. Naruto immediately rushed towards the body of the Sandaime, letting the blue form sink into the man's skin. He let his chakra calm, taking in deep breaths. That had been the hardest thing he'd ever done. He fought the Shinigami in a battle of wills, and won. As he panted, trying to catch his breath, his eyes never left his Gigi's body. After a solid minute, it looked as if nothing was going to happen. That's when Mei opened her mouth to console the blonde. And Naruto? This voice did not belong to Mei. Naruto gave his commander, his god, a small smile. Sorry Gigi, but Konoha still needs you, he chuckled at the Sandaime's unbelieving expression. I told you, right? He asked. I'd fight the Shinigami if it meant protecting you. He gave a sloppy salute. I am ANBU, forever. The ANBU present followed their fellow operatives' example, saluting their commander. Hiruzen looked back around, surprised to be back in the world of the living. You, he whispered. He then smirked. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled, nodding his head, completely ignoring the looks of shock and disbelief of those who had witnessed what had just happened. He then gave off a low growl. But it looks like we aren't done yet. He sighed. That's such a kid. He's leading an army here. He looked his Hokage in the eye. He could tell that he wasn't completely okay. He had made sure to keep the healing factor down, so that he wouldn't almost kill himself. The wounds Hiruzen had weren't serious, but they were definitely no laughing matter. Your orders, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen snarled. Hadn't they had enough? Spare that such a kid. He said. And the others? Naruto asked. Ashi appeared next to the Hokage, picking him up with gentleness no one his size should be capable of. The old Sarutobi looked at the faces of the Hokage, those before and the one after, and then closed his eyes, his mind made up. Death to all enemies of heaven. Naruto smirked before turning around, and slowly making his way to the village gates, the others following. There was something hypnotic about him. It was like he was still calling out to them, like he wasn't done with what he had to say. His will was not finished, not yet. The people inside the Hokage monument followed, obeying the overpowering will. The shinobi, scattered across the village followed, obeying the overpowering will. Everyone followed, the overpowering will screaming to be heard, to be obeyed, to be seen, felt. There was no disobedience at this very moment. Every man, woman, and child walked with only one purpose. They were all connected, following what was absolute, what demanded respect. At this very moment, every mind was united under the power of the Kamikaze will. It was tired of being ignored, of being slandered. They would know after this, though. They would never speak to its master with a sharp tongue again. Never again. Without even realizing it, Naruto brought peace to the people of Konoha. Suddenly, Naruto stopped, just outside the village gates, causing the entire village that was following him to halt. He closed his eyes, breathing in the ash-laced air. He took the moment to gather more chakra, a huge majority of his reserves just floating throughout the village. The people following him closed their eyes, able to feel the warmth that was circling their home. The essence of a god covered heaven in a blanket of security. His chakra hummed, causing some to sway back and forth, peacefully, enjoying the serene, calm feeling. And then, it stopped. Those who had closed their eyes opened them, confused as to why the beautiful feeling paused. Naruto clapped his hands. Before their very eyes, the blonde everyone called a demon lit up in a golden cloak, black markings running up and down his body. The power behind his new form washed over them like a tidal wave, a different kind of feeling. The warmth, the brightness, these things were still present, but there was another, something sinister, underneath. Again, the beauty and brilliance was felt, but the fear, the rage that wasn't a huge part of the last time he raised his chakra to this point was now in equal amounts. A rage that spoke of loneliness, of caged spite, screamed in equal volumes of the peace and warmth. There was a terrifying beauty to it, one that made no one want to disobey it. It was screaming for them to stay behind it, to stay safe, to watch. They were to spectate, nothing else. They were to witness the power of their guardian, their angel, their sword and shield. Once again, they obeyed. A short moment later, Inoki, the Sandaime Tsuchikage, met the terrifying gaze of Uzumaki Naruto, son of the most famous mass murderer in existence. Naruto smirked. "You find this funny, child?" Inoki asked, not caring about the gilded cloak the boy was wearing, nor the feeling his gut was making for even looking the boy in the eyes. "I have an army with me, and we are going to burn this foul place to ashes." That's all the old man was allowed to say, before his whole world was turned upside down. Naruto snarled, raising his right leg slightly into the air, his knee bending. He then roared, the voices of his family syncing with his own. He brought his foot to the ground, hard. "Son Goku," he shouted. Inoki's eyes widened. From his foot, lava rushed out, shooting towards Inoki and his supposed all-powerful army. Before it got too close, it split, starting to encircle the Iwa Nin. There were shouts of panic and fear as the army of 1,000 strong was trapped in a cage of rushing lava, constantly encircling them. As it rushed around them, almost roaring at those who tried to escape, it raised higher and higher into the sky, constantly moving, like it was alive. Naruto then raised his right arm into the air. "Isabu," he shouted. The clouds vanished, the water being used for the second part of the technique. Out of the sky, the moisture in the air came together, matching its lava counterpart. After a moment, the Iwa shinobi were trapped in a cage of lava and water, of earth and sky. Something then almost oozed off of the boy responsible for this, his words not boding well for the old Kage. "Tengaku Kurido," he said, a being made of nothing but gold standing next to its creator, its wings spread wide. The being rushed into the lava, coming out unscathed on the other side of the cage. It grabbed Inoki by the throat and disappeared in a gold flash. Before he even knew what was going on, he was being held down next the boy he came to kill. His left hand then went into the sky, joining his right, his face a mask of the utmost determination. He then let loose his currently most powerful technique, the very words scaring the Iwa army. "Senpo, Tenmei, and I know Dan." Both the lava and water stopped rotating, stopping faster than what should be possible. If one had a bird's eye view, they'd know that the lava and water was not a cage. They were sights. A beam of gold, blue and red shouted the heavens. The screams of the shinobi from Iwa were never heard. The entire world seemed to light up in gold. The entire world seemed to go silent. The entire world seemed to have no mercy for the enemies of heaven. The entire world seemed to obey the bringer of hope. 20 seconds. The whole thing only lasted 20 seconds. For 20 seconds, the entire world felt Uzumaki Naruto. And for 20 seconds, the world feared or loved nothing more than Uzumaki Naruto. For 20 seconds, the entire world obeyed the bringer of hope. When the light lit up, when the world was freed from the absolute power of the Kamikage, there was nothing left of the army from Iwa. They were gone. Naruto smirked. How was that for a comeback? The monster was back. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.